All right, so welcome back everybody to Her Time to Retire. We've got another podcast episode. I'm Jonathan Scott. I'm one of the owners of Keystone Financial Resources. And today we have my mother, Suzanne Scott. So it's a real honor to get to interview her today, and I hope everybody out there enjoys this. So we'll jump right in here and begin talking about it a little bit. You know, years ago, when Glenn and I first started the company, my mother was already in retirement, and we had the thought, we said, you know, we needed somebody new up front answering the phones and greeting clients and things along those lines. And I thought, you know, it would be really great to have Mom up there. She knew so many people in the local community and had a really great presence up front. I knew the clients would love her, but we really didn't have it in our minds, or weren't ready for what was to come. Mm-hmm. And what happened was really the clients fell in love with Mom, and so it was just a beautiful thing. For many, many years, it's been a great privilege to have her up front, and she's not up front anymore, but still coming in a day or two a week here and there, and still getting to see everybody. But it's just really special. But I just want to start off asking you, Mom, when you decided to come back out of retirement and work with Keystone a while, why did you make the decision you made? Why did you decide to come back?
It was very easy to make that decision, Jonathan. I, years before, had run my own catering business and also taught at the same time at MTSU in the history department. And I wouldn't give up either one of them, so I did that for 20 years. But when Jonathan and Glenn started this new business, I was excited for them, and I was always happy to be with Jonathan. I'm very proud of him. He's a good son and a smart businessman, and I've just seen him do things that I've been amazed with. So it was a sweet opportunity, and I remember at first, the first picnic they had for the clients, I was walking with a friend on the Greenway in Murfreesboro, and it was early autumn, and there were a lot of wildflowers out there, and I knew they were going to have tables set up at the country club for this dinner, so I just picked a whole bunch of those flowers and put them in little vases and brought them over for the evening, and it was delightful to me to get to be a part of it again. And so gradually they saw that they needed somebody at the front desk, and I love to visit with people, and the people that are our clients, a lot of them were close to my age, and it was really a pleasure to get to do that. So that's how that happened, and it was just kind of a natural thing. When he first started his very first business, he had a little office on the main square in Murfreesboro, and that's just a stone's throw from the university. So I was teaching, and he needed somebody just to take calls and check that everything was running well in the office, because he was out of the office a lot with his business. And so I remember volunteering for that and running out from my classes, get in my car, run to the square, be there for a couple hours, and then run right back and see if I could find a parking place and be with my class. So I've always loved working with Jonathan, and I can say I think he loved working with me too.
For certain.
When I had the catering business, both of my children who were in high school learned how to do specialties, special things that they baked or cooked, and helped me out with some of the catering preparation. Jonathan makes the best chocolate chip cookies in the world, and he did that for my catering. So it was just normal that we worked together.
Yeah, so obviously Jonathan knows his way around the kitchen for sure.
Absolutely.
But let's, if I had to think back on it, you know, kind of giving everybody a timeline, it was 2009 when you came to work with Glenn and I. And here we are in 2025, about to move into 2026, so a lot of years have passed, but that's been a really neat experience to have here, and something special. Yes. Special for me, special for all the clients here. Mm-hmm. It's this place has a warmth to it, yes, and a family atmosphere, and so much of that I've got to attribute to the things that Mom brought to the table. But even before then, she mentioned that she had been part of everything that I've done basically since college, and it's really been a neat experience because she's coming in and out of retirement multiple different times. But now in my 50s, I really get to look back and appreciate some of the sacrifices that were made and some of the successes. So I've told a lot of our clients over the years, especially a lot of our female clients, Mom was really my inspiration to a whole lot of things. She served a really great example to us as children, and I really attribute a lot of my work ethic to her. But if I had to scroll back the clock a lot further back than 2009, I would say that, remembering my mother as a little boy, it really had a huge impact on me, all the things that she had done. So a story that I tell a lot of times is remembering back to right after a really unusually rough divorce between my mom and dad, and watching my mom kind of go through this time period of all the things that she had put together and all the dreams and things that she had put together. Those things vanished very quickly, and she found herself in a situation where she had to look to be the primary breadwinner for a period of time, and she had to really go from a position where she was helping in the household to now really a position where she was providing for the household. So, Mom, if you would just expand a little bit on that, on the, what it was like in the first few months, prior to, in the situation that you had where we lived in Atlanta, and then moving to a home in a different town all by yourself, and what that was like.
Well, it was certainly the most difficult period of my life, and I was really struggling physically and emotionally, just weary. I went back to the university to start on my master's because I knew that if I was going to have to be the breadwinner, I was going to need to really hone in on what my gifts were, and teaching was one of those. So I was blessed in that the person who was the head of the program that I did my undergraduate work in was thrilled that I came back to town and gave me a teaching assistantship from the get-go, so I began to have an income besides what was coming out of the divorce, which was a long time ago and not truly appropriate. But anyway, I know that God has been with us over the years, and He's always opened up doors, and that was the first door that I had opened to me when I came back home with my little ones and tried to start over again. And yes, it was a big change from what the children were used to, and certainly from what I was used to. And I had had help in the past, and I didn't have any help except that my family was here, and they would help with the children occasionally when I'd have a late class or something that had to do with getting that degree. So it was a rough start, but I think it taught me that I was more equipped than I thought I was, that I could do more than I thought I could do. And with the children's best in front of me, I just dug in and decided I was going to be all right, and so were they.
You served as a great example. So just from my perspective, sharing where it was as a little boy, I didn't really understand all of the things that had transpired, and I really didn't understand all of what Mom was having to go through. But I did understand that it was a scary time, and I did understand that all the securities and things that we had before were gone. Now, what I remember seeing was very early on, my mother was blessed with my adopted father, who came into her life and been a very loving man. And very soon after they got married, They wanted to adopt my sister and I and take on my adopted father's last name, and we did that. And then within a short time, they opened a business in Gatlinburg, and that business opened and closed inside of about a year. And it was one of those years that was really terrible for tourism. But Mom had the ambition to go out and start another business very soon after. So I always look at that as a little boy, and I think, as an adult now, wow, I know what it took to start a couple of businesses out there. I know a lot of the ladies that will watch this podcast know what it takes to start a business. And we usually tell people to pick, whatever 60 to 80 hours you want to work during.
Yes.
And that's where you'll be. But I remember seeing her do that, and it was almost like, putting on your boots, tying up your bootstrings, getting up and going into battle day after day after day. And, one thing that I remember that was, pivotal was that I would see my mother continually going to work, 5 days a week, and then on the weekends again. But it was a blessing in a way, because it really developed what our work ethic was at home.
Yeah.
And it was a very normal thing to work a lot of hours and to make a lot of sacrifices, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Speaking of sacrifices, I was, during those 20 years that I ran the catering business, I also was teaching in the history department as an adjunct professor. And I certainly could have let that go because of the income not being great from it, and the catering business was doing well. But I loved the classroom, and so I chose to keep on doing both of those things simultaneously for 20 years. And I feel like that the teaching was a reward to me. It was a blessing and a reward. I enjoyed it. I loved the classroom setting. And I also loved the catering business. My grandmother was my hero, my mother's mother, and she was widowed when my mother was 4 years old, during a historic time when it was very hard for a widowed woman to handle a household and 3 children and a job. But she was blessed with a father who took her and her children under his wing and established her very close to his own home and protected that little family so that my grandmother could go to work and provide for their everyday needs. So I had that in my history, and that grandmother was not only a woman who was willing to go out and find a job during the time in history when not that many women were doing that, but she also was one of the best housekeepers I have ever experienced. A week at my grandmother's house was like heaven to me. She had the most beautiful food. She cooked. She had a wonderful garden, flowers and vegetables. Her things that she baked were, well, we'd get there, and she would have inside her glass front china cabinet 2 beautiful cakes, a homemade coconut cake and a chocolate cake, a German chocolate cake. And they stood there making our mouths water and us look forward to the meal when they'd be served. She set her table with china and silver, and she was such a lady. Gloves and hat for church, and she did the flowers for the altar at her church and worked as a volunteer at the little library there. So she really set the goal high for me, and my mother was very much like her mother. She entertained us as long as she was able to cook at all, and way up into her 80s on Sunday dinners. And she was a school teacher who, along with the school superintendent's wife, started the gifted program in Murfreesboro. She wrote plays for her 4th grade classes. She was a wonderful teacher and a wonderful example. And Jonathan can double. He can reinforce that statement because he loved his nana.
I had the privilege of actually getting to be under my grandmother as a teacher.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. She most certainly did give me favoritism. I remember one time with my grandmother, got in trouble and a teacher made me go stand in the hallway with my nose to the wall. And when my grandmother came down the hall and saw it, she says, "What happened?" And I told her what happened, and it was a lady that my grandmother did not agree with. And she said, "You come with me, we'll fix this."
Yeah.
And I'll always laugh because
Right.
that was my one time to get in trouble, but my grandmother really came through. So.
Rescued you.
Rescued me.
Yeah. Well,
But,
she also rescued you when you had tummy aches or just didn't want to be.
Yeah. So just had a lot of fun doing this over the years, but watching my mother's been a great example again. I remember, asking her probably a decade ago now, but it hit me that we went for a long period of time moving, sometimes more than one time a year, in different houses. So I experienced having to make friends in a lot of different environments and having to change schools quite a bit. But as I came into teenage years, we really got in a situation where things were stable. But again, I'm watching my mother go to work constantly and work a lot of hours, and all of my friends as well as myself had an opportunity to work under her at least once, if not many times.
Yes.
And we would all wait tables, or we would all cook food or serve food. So it was a good experience. But one day I remember thinking back, and a few years ago, it hit me that my mother had really worked us through that company out of a situation where we were having to move around a lot to, by the teenage years, her and my father being able to build a house and stay in one place.
Right.
And I asked her one time if she had broken 6 figures in income during that time. She said she had. And that was in the mid-80s, mid to late 80s. And I thought about that a little bit, and I thought, that's quite a feat. And so I told my mother one day, I said, I've being an adult, I've put 2 and 2 together, and I've realized that was a big deal for that period of time. And Mom's response was, "Well, honey, we beat back poverty with a frying pan."
Pretty much, yes.
And so tell me a little bit, as we've got a lot of ladies out there that know that in building their businesses and things, there has to be that good balance between family and the work. You can't put it all to the work side and sacrifice the family and expect that it's all just going to come back around. How did you manage that?
Well, basically, we built 2 homes with kitchens that would serve us very well, and that the Lord opening doors. Like I said earlier, the very first catering job that we did, it was at the new bank in Murfreesboro, brand new, that we didn't even know had a full catering kitchen upstairs, a beautiful Georgian dining room, and opportunities for all kinds of entertainment. And this party happened to be an after hours for the Chamber of Commerce in Murfreesboro, and that night we were asked to do the bank's catering, which we did for 20 years, and I had no idea of all the different opportunities we'd have through working with the bank. But I think obviously people recognized the quality of what we offered, even from the very first day, and that we kept that as a goal, that we always had the highest quality available. I had worked out relationships with 2 of the major grocery stores at the time, so that their seafood department would get fresh seafood for me. I knew what I needed, and they would be sure it was there when I needed it. So working around how to make it all happen. And I guess with the question that Jonathan mentioned about how to work that with the family, I mentioned those 2 catering kitchens that were built into our homes. Well, the children were in the home, and we all worked together.
Yeah.
My first grandchild, I remember when my daughter was married and had him, he would sit in he would sit in his high chair at one of the work surfaces, and he would play with bread dough while we were making the
Right.
bread. So yeah, we incorporated it a lot in with the
Exactly.
family so that we didn't totally miss family time.
So that's, I would encourage each of you, as I was thinking about it today, what you can't see in the podcast is my daughter Shelby's on the other side of the podcast doing a lot of the recording and things today. My son Noah, as many of you know, is working here as a full-time advisor and paraplanner. And it just is a quality tip that I think I would leave with anybody out there as they're trying to undertake running a business and things like that, to really include your family in that. And it's a beautiful thing, actually. I have so many fond memories of us working and laughing together, and work wasn't a drudgery. It was actually an enjoyable thing where there was going to be a lot of fun involved, and we've continued that on with our children to date. And if my kids don't have something to do with this, work related, they are looking for a project that we can do to get work related time together. So, it doesn't have to be drudgery. It doesn't have to be something that you make this firm division and say, okay, well, I'm going to go do this, but I don't want my kids to have to see that. One of the best things you can ever do for your kids is let them see you work.
Absolutely.
And let them be involved in that work.
Yep.
And let them see the fruits of that work.
Exactly.
One thing we experienced was Mom paid really good. And so for the work that we did, we got high pay for it.
We did.
And I've always tried to pass that on to my children as well, even in things like building a fence or bringing the hay in or this or that or the other that we did on the farm. I'd always pay the kids and those that helped really, really well, so that they were making more than most of the other people their age were making for those same jobs. And it was rewarding. I never had to ask twice for anybody to come work.
Yep.
But I think that's where we got a lot of our work ethic from. Definitely was watching my mom through all those years and knowing that she wanted so much for things to be excellent and high quality, and things that we've continued to pursue over all these years.
Absolutely.
And so one last thing that I really wanted to talk about, it was really special, in just sharing some stories and things that have happened over time. Mom mentions that she's been a part of almost everything that we've done. I can almost think of no years that Mom wasn't a fixture in anything that I was doing.
Yeah.
And number one, time spent is just a wonderful investment to make. And so when I'm thinking about my children and I'm thinking about your children out there, there's just no substitute for time, even if that time is spent in work.
Working.
No substitute.
I think too, a common goal is so important. We all understood that this was a family business and that we worked together to see it flourish, and it did. And it was rewarding. It was a blessing to be considered the very best in the whole area. We branched out into Nashville. We were invited to cater for the symphony in Nashville, the symphony in Murfreesboro, all the medical groups, many attorneys, the weddings. We were privileged to be the first call that people would make. And when we got together and did it, it was really something we could be proud of. And I think that was part of what Jonathan's talking about too. And for our children to grow up knowing what work is all about, and that it truly is a privilege. And it's a blessing when you can do it together.
Yes, and growing up in the service industry was special.
Yes.
And seeing it at a high level was special as well. But
another point you just mentioned about the paying. I started out paying my help 3 times what the regular hourly pay was at that time. And we worked together almost as a family. I had several girls who were friends who wanted a side job while their children were in school, and it was just a great camaraderie. And they felt rewarded too because they were paid well.
So in more than 30 years now of my work history, I can say that almost none of those years had any distance between Suzanne Scott and myself, and it's been a wonderful privilege and a wonderful example and a wonderful thing to get to pass on. But one really neat story happened, and my sister ended up working for other people and actually marrying and for a time being out of the workplace for many years. But in me having to be in the workplace and be a business owner and have people around me, there came a time when I think my mom was looking through some old jewelry, and she found a piece of jewelry and didn't think it was worth a lot at all, but gave it to my sister, and my sister ended up finding out that it was actually had a pretty substantial value to it. And I remember my mom coming to me and saying, I think I need to try to find something that we can do that would even that out. And I remember thinking, there's nothing that will ever even out me getting the better side of the deal by a long shot and working with you side by side for 30 years, where my sister, due to her circumstances in life, did not receive that privilege. And I said, I think I have gotten the bigger side of that deal by a long shot, and you'll never be able to repay that.
Thank you, sweetie.
And so it's just it's been a wonderful thing to be a part of. I wanted to take a time out. I wanted to share a little bit of that from our lives, how you might relate it to yours, because I'll tell you, when I look back on the years, I would say that this personally has been a success. It's been a successful relationship.
Yes.
It's been a successful venture. It's been a success of a lifetime, and the fruit's there. And so anytime that you're putting this together, again, don't be afraid to share the work together, and then look around you and understand that if you're not seeing fruit come from it, probably you're not doing it the right way, because done correctly, there's going to be fruit spawning off from it all over. So thanks, Mom, for this opportunity.
Thank you for this opportunity.
And for you guys, I hope this blesses you out there, and we'll look forward to seeing you on our next podcast. And if any of you have any questions or would want to reach out one-on-one, just look us up on KeystoneFinancialResources.com, or you can call us on the office line 615-661-9554, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.